We've got, again, so it's the same elbow. Okay, we're on?
Okay.
Same elbow, that was our medial exposure, like so. So body is here, shoulders at the top, wrist is here. So I tend to do the lateral exposures utilizing a hand table. Patient supine, just as you see here. It tends to work out further. It's very comfortable to sit while you're doing this, that way your back doesn't hurt. Same as the medial exposure for that matter. In terms of landmarks, it's pretty much the same as on the medial side. I'll mark out the medial epicondyle, which I've done here with the marker. And again, the olecranon at the back. And it's going to be pretty much halfway between the two. And then so you're going to make your skin incision. I tend to make it curved. Some people might be more straight, but a curve tends to work fairly well. There's not a lot of nerve branches here distally to worry about, unlike on the medial side. So it's pretty much make your incision and just develop your planes down to your fascia. So Hans, I'll get you up in there. So down here, I've marked off the medial epicondyle right here. Sorry, lateral epicondyle. Thank you very much, Michael. Yeah, seniors. So lateral epicondyle here. So our two intervals, the marker has faded a bit overnight, but the two intervals are, the more superior one is the Kaplan, as Pierre was talking about, and then the more posterior is the Coker. And the Coker exposure, as you mentioned, is between anconeus and EDC. So we'll just take a moment to show that. So that's, I haven't dissected this very deeply yet, but this is, the ulna is right down here. You guys can see that? Yeah, ulna. This is anconeus right here. This is EDC here.
Is the focus okay? Sorry, yeah.
We're okay?
Yeah.
So anconeus here, EDC here. And it's easy to find anconeus because you just feel the subcutaneous border of the ulna, which is rock solid right there. It's just that little slip of a muscle above that. So that's the interval there, and we can dissect that interval down. And basically you're going to elevate everything, the whole EDC up superiorly. But before I do that, I'm going to show you, because I'll mess up the Kaplan, so I'll come up to the Kaplan one and show you that. So that's going right through there's a nice white raphe in the extensor carpi radialis longus. And it's quite dense, and it runs right about there, and basically it's centered right over the radial head. And what I'll often do is I'll feel the epicondyle, then I'll feel the radial head, and I'll go pretty much right in the middle of the radial head. And you can see it there. And the incision is made directly, basically, to bone, across and down. And then you can just lift up the ECRB, ECRL, ECRB like so, and that brings you down into the joint. It's a very simple exposure. It's not a big deal. But you are very limited in terms of how far distally you can go. Hans mentioned for me reminded me to mention this. As you go down to the radial neck, you're going to get into the fibers of the posterior interosseous nerve. And so if you have to put a plate on, like a radial neck plate, you're going to have to either dissect those nerve branches out down here, which are just very wispy, there's not much to them. But you're going to have to start dissecting them out down about this level here. You've got about 1 centimeter from the neck, which is safe. Beyond that, you have to worry about it.
Can you tell them about how to put a plate on that?
So that'd be a thing to explore this afternoon. So
yeah, we're going to do that with the forearm exposure. And if we're going to plate it, we want to plate it in the neutral zone, in the safe zone. So what we do there is if you pronate, supinate the forearm, you want to put the plate on directly lateral when the arm is in that neutral rotation position, so that when you're pronating and then supinating, it doesn't hit up against the ulna. What you do see with this exposure quite nicely is the lateral collateral ligament, which we're pointing out right here. So here's our lateral epicondyle. This is the LCL here as it comes down. And this is not just the origin of the extensors. This is a distinct structure. You can see we've retracted our ECRB there. And it's a distinct structure deep to the ECRB, comes off the epicondyle. So that's nice with the Kaplan. You can see that very nicely if you need to repair it. Suture anchors there. Or you can get into the elbow joint without detaching. You can come anterior to it without destabilizing the elbow. And if you're going to do a Jericho triad, usually this is a full stop, so you're going to work across the front. And you can see you can get a pretty good view across the elbow with this, especially if you're taking up your radial head. You can see right into the coronoid. With the Coker exposure, basically you're going to take, we'll all do this in the lab, but you're going to take all of this off. And when you're doing that, it can be a little bit easier to injure the posterior interosseous nerve. So there's our, the ligament, I should say, yeah. It's a little safer from the PIN point of view. So we're just going to elevate that. See that? Okay. We're just going to take that off and just get at the elbow joint from below. And because we're taking the supinator up with us, as long as we have the arm rotated correctly, we're going to be able to do this without injuring the nerve quite as much. So there we go. And then now we're going to get, so there's our ligament again, LCL, and if we want to, we can just cut that. I wouldn't advise cutting it routinely, but just for an example here.
But to get to the radial head, if you had to do radial head surgery fixation through the poker, would you have to cut it, or would you work in front of it?
Well, you could potentially work in front of it, but I must admit I like the Kaplan a lot better for that. If you're doing radial head fractures or radial head arthroplasty, I pretty much always use the Kaplan exposure. I just find it's a nicer exposure. Okay. Any questions about that? Anything you want me to show?
Let's see. We'll ask them the crowd.
So Terry, you were saying that it pins more at risk through the Kaplan than the Cobra. So if you were going to plate the radial neck, would you then go to the Cobra over the Kaplan?
No, I'll tell you what I do personally is I go back and I do use the Kaplan, and then I open up the fascia distally here, and I start very carefully dissecting the supinator muscle until I find the nerve branches, and then I just work around it. So just sort of like what I'm doing here, and then you can usually find the little nerve branches. They're not very big at this level, but you can find them. And I would just basically kind of just do this, just tease it apart, and then work in the zone that I've cleared. You might start to see like one little branch just coming up into view there, just as we get down there. Well, there might be a little branch just like coming up right in there. It starts to arborize at that point. So here you can see you can get pretty safely down to bone and just elevate off the PIN branches like that and get your way down. If I had to do anything more distal than what I'm looking at here, I probably would get at it from the volar exposure. Or do a formal dissection distally. And we're going to find there distally and work back up.
Which they're going to see.
Which we're going to see in a minute.